You ever look at your wife laughing at another man's jokes and feel your soul pack a suitcase? That was me, 6 months ago, sitting across from Amy, my wife of 10 years, as she giggled like a schoolgirl at something Derek. I wear my shirt 2 sizes too small, Hawthorne said. We were at a dinner party, the kind where the wine flows too freely and people forget their filters. Now, I'm not the jealous type. Never have been. But that night, I saw something flicker in her eyes when she looked at him, a flicker I hadn't seen directed at me in years. I didn't say a word, just took a bite of my steak, medium rare, because I still believed in tradition. Aren't you going to say something funny? Amy said to me mid-laugh. I'm trying, honey, I replied, sipping my drink. But I'm not sure how to top his punchlines or your performance. Derek chuckled, oblivious. Amy just blinked and looked away, back to her wine. That was the beginning of the end. But funny thing about endings? They don't come with warnings. They come with late-night texts and passwords changed on shared streaming accounts. I started noticing things. Her phone always on silent. New lingerie tags in the trash when she hadn't worn anything new around me in months. A gym membership she was suddenly very into, despite once declaring ellipticals were torture devices designed by sadists. So I did what any man with a gut full of doubt and a drawer full of receipts would do. I hired a private investigator. His name was Doyle. Bald, smelled like cigars and quiet failure. But he got the job done. 3 weeks later, I had photos. Amy, Derek, hotel, same room. Repeatedly. I didn't cry, didn't scream. Just stared at the photos like they were architectural blueprints to the ruins of my marriage. You want to confront her? Doyle asked. No, I said. Not yet. I want to watch. Because revenge, when it's done right, isn't loud. It's silent. Calculated. And I had a plan. The thing about betrayal is it teaches you patience. I didn't storm in waving photos like a courtroom drama. I played dumb. Smiled when she came home late. Cooked her favorite pasta. Even complimented her new perfume, the one that didn't come from our bathroom shelf. You want to know what it feels like to toast champagne with the woman who's sleeping with someone else? It feels like sitting in a sauna while someone slowly adds more coals. And you sit there, smiling, pretending the heat isn't melting your spine. She kept lying, and I let her. Not because I was weak, but because every lie was another brick in the monument I was building to the day she'd finally see the full picture. And Derek? That man was an amateur. No subtlety. Left his cologne in her car. Liked her Instagram posts from the burner account he thought I didn't know about. The kind of guy who thought a six-pack and a leased BMW made him a threat. Please. I tracked everything. Times. Locations. Patterns. I had an Excel spreadsheet so precise you'd think I was preparing for a financial audit, not a personal war. And she still thought I didn't know. You've been quiet lately, she said one night while brushing her teeth. Just tired, I replied. Work's been a marathon. She smiled in the mirror. Well, maybe we should plan a weekend away. Just us. Reconnect. That almost got me. Almost. The audacity of it. Reconnect, as if there was still a circuit to plug into. Instead, I nodded. That sounds perfect. But in my head, I was already drafting the itinerary for her final performance. Because while she was planning one more weekend of deception, I was planning the kind of finale that doesn't end with tears. It ends with silence. We booked a cabin. The kind with just enough rustic charm to fool the senses into thinking everything's simple again. Firewood out back. A creek nearby. No cell service, which she probably thought was perfect for disconnecting. For me, it was perfect for isolating. I packed light. She packed like we were moving to the mountains permanently for bags for 2 days. That should have been my first clue. Years ago, Amy never intended to travel light in life. Not emotionally, not romantically, and clearly not when she was packing secrets. You seem calm, she said on the drive up. I smiled, eyes on the road. Well, it's peaceful when you finally stop caring. She laughed. What does that mean? Just talking about work, I lied. Left it all behind this weekend. We arrived mid-afternoon. It was quiet. Peaceful. The kind of place where people say things like, you could live here forever, right before they go missing. Inside, she lit candles. Played our old playlist. Acted like a wife again, which was suspicious in its own right. I sat on the porch, watching the woods. Noticing every sound. Every crunch of a twig underfoot. Every branch that swayed out of rhythm. Because Derek was coming. Not that she knew I knew that. But I'd seen the messages. The one where she said, he's finally letting his guard down. Meet us around 10. I'll fake a headache. I smiled when I read it. Because 10 p.m. was mine. And the headache? That was going to be real. It was 9:37 p.m. Amy had changed into that silk robe, the one she never wore unless she was trying to set a scene. She stood in front of the mirror brushing her hair, humming some old Norah Jones song like she didn't have a grenade waiting just outside the window. "You tired?" she asked over her shoulder. I looked up from the book I wasn't reading. "Getting there. Want to turn in soon?" I nodded slowly. "Yeah, you go ahead. I'll lock up." She smiled, turned, kissed me on the cheek. "You're sweet." And just like that, she disappeared down the hall, off to feign sleep while the man she'd been sneaking around with prepared to make his grand entrance through the back door like the world's worst Santa Claus. By 9:52, I was on the porch. The night air was sharp, quiet in that eerie way the woods get when they're holding their breath. I leaned against the railing, sipping bourbon I didn't want, my eyes trained on the path just beyond the tree line. The one with barely a trail, where the brush bowed out slightly if you knew what to look for. And I did. Because Derek had taken that same path 2 nights earlier when he thought we were still packing for the trip. My trail camera caught him sneaking up for a test run, just to see how isolated the cabin really was. Amateur. 9:59. I heard the first twig snap. Derek wasn't subtle. Not when he spoke, not when he dressed, and certainly not when he tried to sneak through foliage. He probably thought he was moving like James Bond, but to me, he sounded like a toddler dragging a rake through a closet. I stayed on the porch, calm. Still. Then he emerged, black hoodie, jeans, that same smug look he always wore like cologne. His eyes darted toward the back door, but they stopped when he saw me. I didn't move. "Evening," I said, like I was greeting the mailman. He froze. Tried to recover with a chuckle. "Oh hey, didn't know you'd still be up." "Oh, I'm full of surprises," I said. "Come to think of it, so are you." He raised a hand like we were pals. "Look, I know this looks bad. Stop," I said, and my voice was sharper than I intended. "Don't insult both of us." He shifted uncomfortably. "Amy invited me." "Oh, I know. Then why are you here?" "I live here," I said, motioning to the cabin. "At least for the weekend. In fact, I invited her." His brow furrowed. "Wait, you knew?" I nodded, taking another sip. "Since March." "Then why didn't you?" "Confront you? Hit you? File for divorce?" I tilted my head. "Because you don't get that kind of drama from me, Derek. You get something worse." He blinked. "Worse. I'll let you walk into your own trap." He laughed nervously. "Okay, man, this is getting weird." I reached into my coat pocket and tossed something at him. A little flash drive. It hit his chest and bounced to the ground. "What's that?" "Footage," I said. "Text messages. Voicemails. GPS data. Everything I'd need to make both your lives very complicated." His face paled. "You wouldn't." "Of course not," I cut in. "Why would I humiliate myself publicly when I can dismantle you both quietly?" He stepped back. "So what do you want?" "That," I said, pointing behind him. He turned. Parked down the slope, just past the tree line, was a car. His car. Black, polished, predictable. Pop the trunk. "What?" "You heard me." He hesitated. "Why?" "Because we're going for a little drive." Derek swallowed, then slowly turned and walked back to his car. The trunk popped with a dull thunk. I followed, slow and steady, bourbon glass still in hand. Inside the trunk, a duffel bag, condoms, a bottle of wine, and what looked like the same cologne he'd spilled on Amy's scarf last week. "Pack a bag?" I asked. "How optimistic?" He said nothing. "Leave it," I told him. "Get in the driver's seat." He obeyed, like a man with just enough sense to know the game had changed. I climbed in the passenger seat, shut the door. For the next hour, we drove. No music. No small talk. Just the sound of tires crunching gravel and Derek glancing at me every few seconds like I was a ticking bomb. "Where are we going?" he finally asked. "You'll see." Eventually, we reached the overlook. A cliffside turnout where you could see the entire valley on a clear day. Tonight it was foggy, moonlight slicing through the mist like a blade. "Stop here," I said. He killed the engine. We sat in silence for a long time. Then I turned to him. "I'm not going to hurt you, Derek." He sighed, relieved. "Thank God. But I'm also not letting you walk away untouched." His brow furrowed. "I want you to feel it. Not just tonight. For years. I want every woman you ever date to wonder why you flinch at the sound of footsteps behind you. I want you to think about this night every time your phone rings from an unknown number." His face tightened. "And Amy," I added. "She won't be coming home with me either. But she'll find your note." What note? The one you're about to write. Saying it was a mistake. Saying you're leaving town. Saying you're not coming back. He stared at me. You think I'll do that? I smiled, cold and slow. I don't think. I know. Because people like Derek? They're only brave until the curtain falls. And tonight, the curtain dropped. Derek didn't argue. Not out loud. His fingers trembled as he pulled a pin from the glove compartment. That amused me. Of course, he had a pin ready. The man probably planned his infidelities with a spreadsheet. What do you want it to say? He asked. Start with an apology, I said. Make it believable. Make it human. He blinked. I don't know how to sound like that. Figure it out. Amy believed you were special. Channel that fantasy. So he wrote. Slowly, sloppily. Words like sorry, mistake, and confused spilled onto the page like cheap wine. I watched the valley. The fog had thickened, blanketing the trees in quiet. It looked peaceful from up here. A lie, just like Amy's promises. Derek finished the note. I skimmed it, nodded. Fold it. Put it in your back pocket. He did. Then he turned to me. So what now? Now, I said, you vanish. He laughed nervously. What, like fake my death or something? Don't tempt me, I muttered. No, you're going to take a long drive tonight. West. No credit cards. No calls. You leave everything behind, including her. Derek frowned. She won't believe it. She'll think I ghosted her. That's the point. And if she starts digging, I'll release everything. Every message. Every photo. You're bluffing. I didn't blink. Try me. He stared. I could see the realization start to crawl behind his eyes, slow, reluctant surrender. This wasn't a breakup. This was exile. After a few seconds, he turned the ignition. I stepped out of the car and tapped on the roof. Drive safe, Derek. And if I ever see you again. I let that sentence hang. He swallowed hard and drove off. Taillights vanished into the mist like the last embers of a dying fire. I walked back to the cabin. The porch light was still on. Inside, Amy sat on the couch, flipping through her phone, legs tucked under her like a woman content with her performance. She looked up when I entered. You were out for a while. Needed air. She eyed the empty bourbon glass. You've had enough? Almost. Did you see something out there? Yeah, I said. A lot of things. She nodded slowly, sensing something was off. Amy always had that sixth sense when it came to tension. She used to use it to check on me. Now it was probably just self-preservation. I sat across from her. Not beside her. What if I told you I knew about him? I asked casually. Her smile froze. What? Derek. The texts. The meetings. The hotel key card that fell out of your purse 3 weeks ago. She blinked rapidly, mouth parting. I didn't confront you, I continued. Because I wanted to see how far you'd take it. Logan. No. Don't talk yet. You had your performance. Let me finish the monologue. Her eyes darted to the door. I could tell she was trying to gauge if Derek would come walking in. He's not coming. What? I told you. I saw a lot out there tonight. Including him. She went pale. What did you do? I tilted my head. Funny. That's the first time you've sounded scared since this whole thing started. She stood, slow and cautious. If you did something to him, he's alive, I said. Alive and gone. Gone. Gone as in, you'll never see him again. Gone as in, he won't be calling you from his new phone. Gone as in, he wrote a note and vanished into the fog. Her face twisted. You made him leave? No, I said. You did. I just helped him realize it. She paced. This is sick. This is psychotic. Sick. I asked. Amy, you brought him into our life. You dragged him through the dirt where our vows used to be. You made me the third wheel in my own marriage. She stopped pacing, breathing hard. So what now? Now, I said, you get to choose. Choose what? I stood, walked to the drawer, pulled out the envelope. This, I said, tossing it on the table. Inside, copies of the texts, the photos, her call logs, and a notarized draft of divorce papers already signed by me. She looked at the envelope like it might explode. You can walk out that door with this, and we'll end it quietly. No drama. No courtroom theatrics. And if I don't? Then I go public. Your job, your reputation, your family, they'll all know the woman behind the curtain. Amy sank onto the couch, covering her mouth. For the first time in a long time, she didn't look strong or smug. She looked small. I sat across from her again, leaned forward. You started a fire, I said. But you forgot I know how to burn too. She didn't reply. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and headed for the door. Where are you going? She asked, her voice hoarse. To get some air. You just got back. I paused, turned slightly. And you just lost everything. Then I walked out. And this time, I didn't look back. The first night after she left, I slept like the dead. Not because I felt peace, far from it. But exhaustion has a way of sedating you when your emotions finally shut up for a while. You ever carry something so long you forget how heavy it is, until it's gone? That was me. 10 years of slowly drowning under her smile. Amy took the envelope. She didn't say a word, just packed in silence, closed the cabin door behind her, and drove off like someone fleeing the scene of a crime she couldn't talk her way out of. And me? I stayed. For 3 more days. Not because I had unfinished business. Not even because I liked the cabin. But because I wanted to sit in the wreckage of what she tried to bury me under and feel it all clear and sober. On the second day, I burned everything that mattered once. Anniversary cards. Vacation photos. That stupid, love you more plaque she bought at Target. I threw them in the fire like they were dry leaves. They curled, they snapped, they vanished. On the third day, I packed. But not to go home. That house? It was never really mine. It was hers. Her curated shrine of throw pillows and Pinterest boards and fake smiles. The scene of the crime, only I wasn't the victim anymore. I'd left the body behind. Instead, I checked into a small apartment on the edge of town. 1 bedroom. Sparse furniture. A mattress on the floor. It looked like the beginning of something, not the end. And that suited me just fine. Todd came by the next week. My best friend. The only guy who never once doubted me when I said something felt off. So that's it? He asked, staring at the mattress like it personally offended him. That's it, I said. Divorce will be finalized next month. And Derek, probably somewhere in Arizona selling fake real estate and watching his back. Todd nodded. You ever gonna tell the world what she did? No need, I replied. She'll spend the rest of her life wondering if I will. That's punishment enough. He paused. You're colder than I thought. I shrugged. She taught me. We shared a beer in silence. And for the first time in years, it wasn't the silence of something broken. It was clean. A few weeks later, the fallout began. Amy's office heard rumors. Someone leaked a few photos from a source. Suddenly, the golden girl of her firm was taking a leave of absence to focus on personal matters. Translation: someone saw the cracks. Mutual friends reached out. At first with concern, then curiosity, and finally, alignment. Turns out, I wasn't the only one she lied to. There was a trail of manipulation behind her, half-hearted apologies, gaslighting, emotional IOUs she never repaid. People started seeing the real her. And me? I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The truth's a slow tide. But once it rolls in, it doesn't leave until the whole beach is washed clean. One morning, I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address, but I recognized the script immediately. Amy. I sat at the counter in my apartment and read it once. Then twice. She said she wasn't looking for forgiveness. Said she understood now what she'd done, not just to me, but to herself. Said losing me was the moment the mask finally cracked. She ended the letter with, I don't expect you to respond. But I hope someday, when you're sitting in the quiet, you'll think of me and not hate me. I folded the letter. Didn't burn it. Didn't tear it up. I slid it into a drawer, shut it gently, and made breakfast. Because that's the thing about survival. It's not about forgetting. It's about remembering without bleeding. Months passed. The divorce was finalized. I kept the apartment, bought a rail bed, painted one wall navy blue just to remind myself I could make decisions without permission. I even started dating again, not seriously, just cautiously, like dipping a toe into the ocean after a shipwreck. I wasn't looking to fall, just to remember what standing upright felt like. And every once in a while, someone would ask me, so what happened with your marriage? I'd smile, take a sip, and say it ended when it needed to. Because the truth, the full, messy, ugly truth, it belonged to me now. And I didn't owe it to anyone. You want to know the twist? I never stopped loving her. Not really. But I stopped needing her. And that's a deeper kind of freedom than love ever gave me. Because love should build, not bury. And if someone hands you a shovel instead of a ladder, you don't wait for the dirt to fall. You climb out. You walk away. And you light the ground behind you on fire. Just to make sure no one else ever buries you there again. The day started like any other. Coffee. Quiet. A new playlist playing through the apartment's half-decent speakers. I was scrolling job listings, not because I needed one, but because rebuilding your life sometimes means testing your old dreams. That's when the call came. Blocked number. Normally, I let those go to voicemail. But some gut twitch I've learned not to ignore, made me pick up. Logan. The voice was strained. Female. Familiar. It was Linda, Amy's friend. One of the few who hadn't called or texted in months. I'd assumed she'd chosen her side and stayed there. Linda. A sharp breath on the other end. I know I'm probably the last person you want to hear from, but it's Amy. I said nothing. She was in an accident last night. Her car went off the road near the old river bend. Still, I said nothing. She's alive. Bruised ribs. Broken arm. Some stitches. But she's not okay. Silence. She's asking for you. That one landed like a gut punch in reverse, an emotional whiplash. I leaned against the counter, staring at the coffee still steaming. Why me? Linda hesitated. I think you're the only one she trusts right now. That was rich. But I wasn't angry. I was curious. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fluorescent regret. Room 318. I walked in and saw her lying there, pale against the white sheets, hair matted down, her right arm in a sling. She turned her head and smiled. Barely. Logan. I pulled up a chair. Saturday. No one else? I asked. She shook her head. Not anymore. I looked at the drip. The bandage along her temple. What happened? Took a turn too fast. Black ice. Thought I could handle it. She paused. Like everything else. We sat in silence for a while. I didn't call to win you back, she said eventually. I'm not that delusional. I waited. I just wanted to say something before life made the choice for me. I glanced at her. You were always good at that. Controlling the narrative. She nodded. Took the hit without flinching. I loved you, she said, quietly. That part wasn't fake. I know. Her eyes widened a little. You do. I just wish you loved me enough to stop before it all turned into theater. She closed her eyes for a second. Me too. I studied her. Why Derek? I don't know, she whispered. He made me feel young. Reckless. Wanted. You made me feel seen. That scared me. That one hurt. More than it should have. Do you think you would have stayed? I asked. She shook her head. Not a chance. Men like Derek don't stay. They visit. They consume. And then they leave. And you. She looked at me, tears in her eyes. I stayed too long in the wrong kind of hunger. The nurse interrupted then. Time for her meds. I stood, nodded at the nurse, and turned to leave. Logan, Amy said softly. I paused at the door. Thank you for coming. I didn't turn around. Get better, Amy. Then I walked out. And this time, I didn't look back either. 2 days later, I got another letter. No return address again, but this one was shorter. 1 page. Clean. Logan. I don't expect another visit. But I want you to know, that night at the cabin, when you said I'd lost everything, you were right. I lost you. And losing you hurt worse than any wreck ever could. Amy. Life moved on. It had a funny way of accelerating once the past stopped chasing you with a knife. The apartment became a home. The navy blue wall got framed photos of landscapes, mostly. No people. I liked it that way. Nature never lied to me. Work picked up. I started my own thing, consulting part-time. My own name on the emails. No boss, no borrowed desks, no fake smiles over break room coffee. One afternoon, I ran into Derek's sister at a grocery store. He's in Oregon now, she said, watching me closely. Good for him. He's not the same. I raised an eyebrow. He checks his rearview mirror a lot more now. I smiled at that. Tell him I said hello. I replied. And goodbye. She didn't know what to say. Some people still tiptoe around the idea of justice. Like closure has to come with a ribbon and forgiveness. But me? I settled for distance. And peace. And a silence no one else could take from me. Time passed. A season changed, then another. I didn't mark the days anymore. I marked the silence, the kind that doesn't scream, doesn't ache, just sits with you like an old friend. I started volunteering on weekends, teaching at-risk teens how to rebuild small engines. It kept my hands busy and my mind out of the echo chamber. One kid named Malik reminded me of myself at 16. Smart, angry, always half a second from a fist fight. He didn't talk much, but when he did, it mattered. You ever been betrayed? He asked me one day. I tightened a bolt on a carburetor and said, yeah. Thought I was going to die from it. What happened? I wiped my hands. I didn't. He nodded. Just once. And that was enough. There's a strange thing that happens when you give your pain a purpose. It doesn't go away, but it does stop dragging you around by the throat. Amy stayed quiet. No more letters. No calls. Mutual friends said she moved to a condo on the coast. Started seeing a therapist. Got a dog. Good. We don't always need people to pay for what they've done. Sometimes it's enough just to know they're no longer renting space in your soul. But peace, real peace, it never arrives with a bow. Sometimes it sends a warning first. It started with a knock on my door. Late, quiet, deliberate. I opened it to find a man I didn't recognize, mid-30s, wiry, with nervous eyes and a tight grip on his phone. "Logan?" he asked. I nodded. "You are?" "Name's Peter." I know Derek. Or I did. "I think you need to know something." He handed me his phone. Open on the screen was a voice memo. Derek's voice. Ragged, drunk, or scared. Maybe both. He said he'd let me walk away. Told me to vanish. But I can't. I see him in dreams. I hear the crunch of leaves. I can't sleep near windows anymore. What kind of man does that to another man? Peter paused the recording. He disappeared. For weeks ago. No contact. Just packed up and drove into the mountains. I handed the phone back. "And you're telling me because?" Peter swallowed. "Because he mentioned you. Said if anything ever happened to him, it'd trace back to that cabin. That weekend." I stared at him. "Is this a threat?" I asked. "No," Peter said quickly. "It's a warning. I think he's coming back." "Why would he?" "To finish something. Or to feel like he matters again." "I don't know. But I figured. You'd want to be ready." I closed the door. Didn't sleep that night. And for the first time in a year, I opened the drawer next to my bed. The one that held my old life. The folder. The files. The weight. I didn't feel scared. I felt alert. Because closure isn't always quiet. Sometimes it wears boots and walks like it's got a score to settle. It was midnight when I saw the headlights. Slow, deliberate, cutting across the apartment's lot like a scalpel. I stood at the window. Watched the car idle for a moment. Then shut off. I didn't grab a bat. Didn't call the cops. I just opened the door and stepped outside, barefoot on the cool concrete, the night pressing in like a held breath. Derek stepped out of the car. Same face. Less smug. I sunken. Skin pale like a man who hasn't seen daylight in months. "Logan," he said. "Derek." He took 2 steps forward. "I just want to talk." "I doubt that." "No tricks," he said, hands up. "No grand plans. I just need to ask one thing." I waited. "Why didn't you destroy me?" "Fully. Publicly. You could have. You had everything." I looked at him. Really looked. And finally said, "Because I didn't want you to become the story." He blinked. "What? You thought you were the center of the betrayal. The main character. You weren't. You were a mistake. A glitch in the system. My story isn't about you. It never was." He took a shaky breath. "Then what is your story?" I smiled. "A man who got free. And made damn sure the door locked behind him." He stood there, shoulders sagging. "I have nothing left." "Good," I said. "Then you finally understand what you took from me." I turned around. Walked back inside. And behind me, I heard the car start. No threats. No yelling. Just the sound of a man realizing he was never the villain. Just a footnote. A cautionary tale. I closed the door. Locked it. Sat down. And exhaled. Not because I was safe, but because I was no longer afraid.